source of all light. By your word you give light to the soul. Pour out on us the spirit of wisdom and understanding, that our hearts and minds may be opened. Amen. Sheep, and one of them has gone astray, does he not leave the 99 on the mountains and go and search for the one that is straying? If it turns out that he finds it, truly I say to you, he rejoices over it more than over the 99 which have not gone astray. So it is not the will of your Father who is in heaven that one of these little ones perish.
Have to think about what Trish is going to say and one of these things. Because you already heard this one, right?
Sure. Yes.
Hundreds and thousands of times. So I could just kind of...
Cut to the chase.
Amen. We're here. Got brownies and Oreos. What else do we need? Okay, so where exactly are we? We're in Matthew 18 still. And we'll be there by another week or so. But I want to remember to set the scene. We got Jesus, his disciples, and the little boy or the girl, we don't know, it's a kid, in the circle. We're talking about the kingdom of heaven. And the neat part is we came to a parable. We haven't seen one of those since chapter 13, which was what, 7 or 8 months ago, it seems? Wow, it seems like forever ago. So that's what we're working with. Now, the first part of the parable, I just want to explain a little bit. This is kind of a refresher because I know, Trish, you know all this already. So bear with us because the rest of them probably need a little bit of a refresher. Is that okay? Okay. First, we look at shepherd imagery because that's what it's about, right? We got a shepherd, a flock, and a lost sheep. And I think the shepherd's important, and that's what we don't concentrate on usually. We usually talk about the lost. So I'm going to give a little imagery, tell you about the lost, but then we're going to go look at it in a different direction, which is, I'm sure, okay with you? We're good. So the shepherd imagery, all we have to do is go to the Old Testament, and we find plenty of references. I'm just going to show you a few. Isaiah 40:11 is the one that pops up usually first. Like a shepherd, he will tend his flock. Now, what is the shepherd doing? He's protecting the sheep. It's his job to make sure they don't get eaten by wolves or somebody unscrupulous type person comes and steals them away. Because sheep were considered money, right? Because you sheared them, and eventually if you can't shear them, sorry guys, you eat them. Mutton here and there. But the shepherd also led them, right? Led the sheep to the next water holes, the next grassy area, and he took care of them. So God ends up receiving the shepherd imagery, of course, which makes sense. And like Ezekiel 34, thus the Lord says, behold, I will search for my sheep and will seek them out. So you can see how Jesus is building on this wonderful imagery. And I think all of us would say, yeah, we're pretty cool with God being the shepherd, right? You're all right with that? I mean, here you got Jeremiah, then I myself, now I meaning God, is what it actually says, will gather the remnant of my flock out of the countries where I have driven them. Even though they were punished people, God says, I will bring you all back together because you're mine. Now, he did kind of bring them together, but they also stay a little scattered, but that's part of history. We won't go there. But of course, Psalm 23, which I'm sure you can all do in King James by heart. Should we try it? You have to lead us.
The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He leadeth me beside
still waters. He restoreth my soul. Yea, though I walk through the valley.
staff, they come to me and pass the table before me.
Yeah, close enough.
Yep.
They did a really good job. Anyone listening out there or later on?
Impeach.
Did a good job. Anyway, again, the Lord is my shepherd. He takes care of us. He brings us the still waters, mean we get all our needs taken care of if we indeed trust in him. And sheep trust the shepherd. They're not going to be led down a gully. They're not going to fall over a cliff. They know that when the shepherd says, hey guys, we're going over that hill, that's where the water must be. That's where the grass is. That's where the protection is. So we're all good with that and thinking of God as that. We're good. Now, shepherds in Jesus' day had an interesting little problem. First, in the Old Testament, in the days of David and all, that was a pretty good job. But by the time we get to Jesus' time and Romans are there, being a shepherd's not a great job. I hate to equate it to what I'm going to say, but it's the truth. It's like being a garbage man. It's something that had to be done, that people did, but it wasn't a glamorous job. Remember the show, the Dirty Jobs or whatever it was, like on the History Channel? It would be one of those type of jobs. It just wasn't high society job. Why, we don't really know. But shepherds wanted to kind of lift themselves up a little bit. They cared about their reputation as a keeper of sheep. And if one sheep was lost, the shepherd considered the whole flock lost. That's the thinking, that's the backdrop for this that's up there. So one sinner in a community, the community was considered doomed. History says that. Because if we look back in history to the Assyrian invasion, God's going to cause that to occur because of sinners in the community. If you go to the book of Habakkuk, I'm sure you're all going to read it later. It's only 3 chapters. The first chapter, Habakkuk comes before the Lord and says, so when are you going to get rid of the sinners? I'm kind of ad-libbing it here a little bit, paraphrasing. And the second chapter, God says, now, all of them. And he says to Habakkuk, I'm sending the Babylonians basically to wipe you guys out. I'm sorry, the Assyrians in the wrong period. And then what does chapter 3 say? And Habakkuk goes, how can you kill everybody? The whole community is what they talk about. All throughout the scripture, New Testament included, everything's about community. This idea of individualism doesn't appear until around 1500 to 2000, which we call the modern time period. People didn't think individually, they thought community. So one lost person, meaning one, in this case, sinner, meant the whole community was doomed. And you can see that in the shepherd imagery, because if he lost one of 100, he lost the whole flock. He couldn't go back home and say, sorry, dear, I kind of lost one. They would go out and search for that one because it meant everyone. And you can see that again in the history and in Jesus' day. Community was the key. That's what's coming back. That's why Facebook and Twitter and all that are so successful, because it creates virtual communities, which is something that got lost during those last 500 years. So we tend to concentrate on the lost. Who are these lost people, as the church tells us today? Well, first, they're the sinners, right? Because they're not in church. So all these people and should be filling all these empty pews, they're all sinners. Go tell them that. Except the people 845, because they were here earlier. Okay? So you have sinners. Another way to look at it from church interpretation is, well, there are people that don't know Jesus. Can you believe that? There are people who don't know Jesus. And there are lots of them out there, and those people are lost because they don't believe. Well, they don't believe because they don't know. There are also people that that I like to call the disenfranchised, and you know them. Those are people that were here at one time. They said they believed. They may have even been baptized here. They may have attended, but they're not here anymore. Not just here. It's all over the U.S. It's all over Western Europe. We have disenfranchised people. So when you talk to someone who says, well, I used to go to church, you ask them why. So why'd you stop? And a lot of times you find out it's politics or something silly. I'm talking church, political things, in those bigger churches especially, that someone said something to someone that someone didn't like, and now I don't go to church because I don't like this person. It's crazy stuff. But if we could bring all the disenfranchised back in, we would be running here probably 3 or 4 worships a Sunday, and the place would be filled. There are hundreds and hundreds of them out there. And I think it's the disenfranchised that are part of the hurting of the church, because people are talking to the disenfranchised saying, well, I don't want to go to church if that's the way to treat people. And you find out that it probably didn't even happen that way. But they're out there. Those are the lost. That's what the church has been talking about. Now, this is where Tricia says there must be more, because I already know all this stuff, and you bet your boots. It's great to have a straight person in the audience, isn't it? I need her to come also at 8:45, because wow, they just sat there today. I think you can look now. Bear in mind, parables have multiple meanings. Excuse me, and we all know that. And I'm going to give you what I think is a threefold interpretation based on the shepherd this time and not on the lost. All right? So let's take the first. First one's easy. Who is the shepherd? Excuse me. Well, I think what's pretty clear, God could be the shepherd. You could think of God that way. We see that. We showed the scripture, right? And God's going to lead you to the green pastures and the waters and all that, if you're willing to trust. And part of that trust, when you think about it, it's going to come after this, is in the offering. Are you going to show God you really trust? And we do that all the time. And God will be very good as the shepherd, and that works well, right? And then who else could be the shepherd, number 2? Well, that's easy. That's Jesus as the shepherd. And I was trying to remember if we had it, but we don't. A lot of churches have that stained glass where you see Jesus and holding the little lamb, and everything's really cool about that. That kind of imagery has been around since the beginning. It's 2,000 years worth of imagery. And certainly you would say, well, yeah, if I follow what Jesus said I should do and how I should live, things are pretty good, aren't they? And yeah, that means he's your shepherd, right? Because you're following him. Because, right, sheep follow the shepherd, and you do it acceptable. Now, but who's number 3? That's the one that you're probably waiting for. And guess who that is? That's you and me. We are the arms and feet of Christ. How then can we not be? We need to go out and find the lost, right? Jesus says at the end of Matthew, we're going to get there probably in a year. Right, Barb? Give or take. And Jesus says, go out and make disciples. He's saying, go out and tell people about me, but you have to shepherd them. Somebody's got to teach us. Somebody taught you, and someone taught you. And unfortunately, I went to seminary to learn it and spend a lot more money than you did to learn it. But you catch my drift. You got to learn it from someone. Well, then who's the shepherd? Well, that makes you and me the shepherds. And if we want Christianity to turn around in the U.S., we need everyone who's sitting in a church anywhere today to say, I will go out and shepherd at least one person. Do you realize if you shepherd one person and bring one person in, we just double the attendance? And what's amazing is if they go out and do the same thing, it's like having a penny. Does everyone start with a penny and double it every day? How many trillions of dollars do you have in 30 days? Well, we could do the same thing. And part of the decline in the church is that I don't think we think as shepherds anymore. That we need to go out and help people. Hey, the world's pretty bad out there. Did you watch the news this morning? I mean, it's bad. And here we're sitting with the love and hope and grace and Jesus and God and how great things are, right, Barb? The shepherd, and we're keeping it inside the building when it needs to go out there. We need to go out and be shepherds and go out there and help people. And when you find someone who says, well, I used to go to, ask them why. And then tell them, we don't do it this way in Bethany Felton, and bring them with you. And I know they won't believe you, but once they come here the first time, they'll always return. So go out and be shepherds for God. It's our turn now.